Hello and welcome to the Car Kernel Channel live stream. How you guys doing today? I hope everybody's doing good and enjoying their Saturday. Well, looks like you guys are ready. Here's what we're going to do, just like we did last week. Let's answer some questions, and then toward the end of the live stream, we'll have a little chat. We'll have a little talk about how things are going, because we got some things going on in the background here. So let's start with Rob Taft. What is your opinion about the Lexus LC500? What is the best year for used models? And is the performance package worth the extra dollars? So I think the LC500 is actually a very nice car inside. I haven't had a lot of time to drive one and live with one for a while, but I've seen them, been in them, took them for a short drive. The inside is really exceptionally nice. Even the outside, personally, I really like how they look on the outside. The engine is a ancient one. But it's really a powerful one. It's, I think, a 2UR GSE. It's a really nice car. As far as performance package, I wouldn't say worth the extra dollars. I would say, do you like it? Because it's a high performance car even without the performance package, but that would really something up to you if you see the benefit or the value in it. But I would definitely try. I mean, in these hard times, it's hard to find one to drive it to begin with, but try to drive one without it and see how you feel about it, because they drive it really nice in their like base trim. So German Rodriguez, I have an open pilot device like you do on your Camry, and I love it. Can that void the factory warranty on my new Corolla? It will void the factory warranty on things that are related to your, the safety systems, like your front radar sensor, the camera. For example, for everybody else who's unfamiliar with that, I'm going to do a video on that soon. It will void your warranty on certain things. The main one being, sorry guys, let me just fix your phone, make sure you guys can hear me well. Yes. The main thing being is your front radar sensor, the front recognition camera. I mean, that's already void on my car the minute I put that thing on and went on video instead of that I have it on. But that's the decision I made, and it's not a big deal. Ken, I'm trying to read their names. Ken Skadra, 1997 Camry LE 4-cylinder, 87,000 miles. On and off ABS slide, major problem. I don't think it will be a major problem. It's probably a speed sensor. That's the first guess, but you would have to see which one it is, do a little bit of diagnosis to verify. But I wouldn't say it's a major problem without really looking into it. That it's You don't want to assume the worst from the get-go, but do check codes first. Loco por Toyota. Do the new Corollas Japan made have TPMS that can auto relearn the sensor ID just by driving, or still need scan tool to program the new sensors? So they should have the new style TPMS sensors, but I have seen a few, not the newest ones, but a few. I think of the lower grade model that might still have the older one. You would have to see if it has a rubber valve stem, then it's a newer style. If it's a metal valve stem, it's the older style. So American Dude, what causes hybrids to catch on fire? Not specifically to any brand. Also, is the new twin turbo V6 hybrid Sequoia Tundra programmable to make better MPG? Um, Hybrids to catch on fire, they're not really known to catch on fire per se. You get in a major accident that is really crushing to the car, you maybe will have issues if the battery gets compromised. But I mean, before the battery gets compromised, this car will be almost crushed, where the fuel tank will be a bigger issue than really the battery. So there's no specific reason for hybrids to catch on fire per se. And the new twin turbo V6, as far as programming it to get better gas mileage, I work at a dealership. I'm not really into the modification. These trucks are too new, and I actually don't advise modifications on these because, uh, they already did what they did to get you better gas mileage. You start programming things and changing things, you might compromise reliability beyond what's normal and expected. So Shrep777, any update on the AC train noise in the RAV4 Prime in cold weather? It's becoming so annoying. There is a bulletin in Europe on this already. There is no updates on this, not even anything. There's talk about it being potentially a normal condition. I don't think that is the case. That is just here like a rumors or technicians talking, but there is so far in the US at least, there is nothing on it. I will investigate a little bit on the Europe if they have a bulletin on it already, but so far in the US, nothing on that I know of. Nathan Shiba, 2022 Forerunner with Blizzard Pearl paint coming in. Some suggest that the paint has had problems. Have you seen any paint problems with Blizzard Pearl? So they have had problems with Blizzard Pearl, but not in the 22, some of the older models. The newer one, I haven't seen issues. Doesn't mean that they will not get included in that program, or perhaps I would say that they probably resolved the issues, or I hope so. But I don't know exactly if they're going to get added later or not, what they did. Toyota doesn't share stuff like that. They just say, there's a problem, here are the affected years, and that's that. So dry lodge. I want my gaskets to last as long as possible on my 2021 car. What can I do other than 5,000-mile oil changes? Honestly, gaskets on Toyotas, I mean, I'm assuming head gasket and typical engine gaskets, they will last a long time, but you want to keep the maintenance, like stuff with coolant. Uh, you want to change the coolant on time. Changing the oil on time is not really going to help seals. Extreme heat and extreme cold usually affect them, and it gets worse when the car is not driven regularly. If it just sits and sits and sits, that's when gaskets really start to fail early. But as far as doing something specific to take care of them, I wouldn't say there is something you want to do. So, Thomas Garcia, new owner of 2010 RX 350, 109,000 miles. Rubber VTI oil cooler line was never replaced to the metal one. Should I have it replaced immediately? I would. The oil cooler line, if it pops, it will cause issues. So you do want to replace it, regardless if it's leaking or not. Just replace it to the all metal one and be done with it. Sapu Sil, I have a 2020 Toyota Highlander with 20,000 miles. When should I consider changing the trans fluid? So you're going to want to change it around 60,000 miles or 6 years, whichever comes first. And Gazari, thinking about Sienna, but worried about long braking distance and the hybrid engine being underpowered. What do you think? So I don't think the braking power thing, I mean, unless you plan to race your Sienna, which I'm already immediately going to tell you that's the wrong car, braking distance is not going to be an issue. Underpowered, it is if you load it up and you're going up a steep hill, but it's not that it can't do it. You're just going to feel like it's laboring a little bit because it's a smaller engine. But unless you drive up a steep hill every single day, this is not going to be a problem, because the one or two hills that you're going to encounter and the car will struggle a little bit. I think that's a good trade-off by getting the good gas mileage all year long in your normal driving otherwise. So, go test drive one. I'm not going to tell you, oh, it's not underpowered, it's good. It's adequate, it's good. The minivan is not supposed to be a fast car. It's supposed to be a car holder and car for the family. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's slow, but it's not fast. Not like the V6. The V6 was a little bit on the ridiculous side sometimes, but that's how minivans went. You get really good gas mileage with a new one. Chicken and broccoli. I recently got a 2007 Toyota Matrix with 115,000 miles. Have you seen any major issues with this car, or should it still last me a while? These are good cars if they're taken care of. They seem to get to a point where people either really take care of them or they really don't. They could have a front timing cover leak. That's like the easiest front timing cover to do. I think it pays 4 hours in labor. It's super simple, very DIY. That car is very DIY friendly. Um, Intake manifold gaskets are common, super easy to replace. But otherwise, they don't do very well with rust. But otherwise, it's a really good car in my opinion if it's in good shape. So fizz out, should wheel bearings be changed in pairs per axle, like brakes and tires, or can they be replaced individually? So they can be replaced individually. This is actually something I wouldn't replace them in pairs unnecessarily unless there's issues. You can definitely replace them individually. So Thomas Garcia, another question. The spark plugs will be due soon. I have watched your videos on replacing those on the V6, but could I replace the front three and have the dealer replace the back three? Well, I wouldn't do that because then you're just asking for issues at the dealership. I mean, they're not really going to cut much labor for the fronts. The fronts are super simple. I would just have them do the whole job if you're not going to tackle it, and just let them do it, and life is good because you're really not saving yourself anything at that point. Just working on the car and then having them do the rest. They'll charge you the same, believe it or not. But I would either do it yourself. I have a video, or if you decide this is too much, this is something outside of your skill level, then just have the dealership do all six. That way, whatever happens, you go back to them and you tell them there's a problem from what you did. They're not going to be able to tell you, well, you did the front three, we did the back, we did half the job. That just don't give them the chance to go down that road. Just have them do the full job and be done with it. Chad and Melissa, is there any year model of Lexus GX 350 to stay away from? We purchased the new 2020 GS 350F Sport and we're wondering if we made a great purchase or not. Honestly, the GS 350, specifically the 350, they have been really good from day one. Obviously, the older ones are getting older, and some people didn't really take care of them, so they might have some issues if you're buying like the first years that they came out. But at a 2020, I think they are truly good cars. I mean, they've been the same. They changed the body, they changed the looks, they changed the technology, but they did not change much underneath, which is really good. They just kept improving it. 2020 GS350, you bought it. They don't make them anymore. You really bought a good one, and I hope you take care of it, you maintain it, because they don't make them anymore. And I really like the GS350. That would have, if they still made it in 2022, I would have considered it instead of my cameras. I really like the GSs. So, Sebi, what is your mechanical opinion about the Prius V? So the Prius V is a really, really good model, and I kind of wonder why they canceled it because it doesn't make sense. But it's a really good model. The early years did have a few issues, like 12, 13, maybe 14, but for the most part, they're good with good maintenance. They're very similar to the Prius, but their size and their function, they're really, really good. And I don't understand why Toyota canceled them. A lot of people really like the Prius V. Those who own it and know it's a really good car. Function wise, it's really good. And I think it has one of the most comfortable seats I've sat in. Surprisingly, they're really comfortable. Jason Montejano. So I replaced the oil pan in my 2012 Camry that I dented. I have metal particles in the filter. Should I change the oil again? Or should I be concerned? You definitely want to change the oil again soon just to get it out. There was some damage, but you stopped it and we're good. So just keep an eye on things and you should have no issues. Don't be concerned for now, but keep an eye on it. Nathan Shiba, is there any significant advantage to changing the oil on new Forerunner every 3,000 miles rather than 5,000 miles, city driver, frequent short trips, less than 10 miles? I think you can safely go with the 5,000 miles in this case. I don't see the reason to go 3,000 miles. But one thing, since you are city driver, frequent short trips, less than 10 miles, watch the time. You want to change it every 6 months. That might come up before your 5,000 miles. So if it comes up 6 months and you are at 3,000 miles, do change it because that's the other side of it. So Philip Polo GX470, hello sir, 2004 Lexus. I'm guessing you didn't get the whole question. I'll have Mrs. Karkin look for it. Uh, let's see, Philip Polo GX470. If you find that question, let's read it. Mrs. Karkernat is joining me today in the same room. Usually she sits somewhere else and we communicate by text. Today she's sitting right here. And so if I get yelled at halfway, she's here. Anything fixed? I'm currently looking for a RAV4, specifically a 2011, 12, or 13. Which one has the least issues at your dealership and easier to work on? So the thing with these 3 years is the four-cylinder burns oil. The V6 will be very good, but a little harder to work on. So if you're instead looking at that generation, you're not going to find one that is easy to work on and good. Store only 11, 12, and 13. 13 will be a little bit better. You do have a few issues. If you can stretch your budget to get a 16 to get us like a 16 to 18, that would be actually better. Let's read the other question from. So 2004 GX470, 83,000 miles. Should I service the transmission fluid? Never been serviced before. Yes, you should be good servicing a transmission fluid at this mileage, but I would do it soon and only do a drain and fill, and you should be good. So Matt C, will there be a technical tour of the new GR86? Any problems with new engines? I literally saw one for the first time like a week ago. I can't really talk much about it. It's supposedly an improved engine. I have a very low opinion of the Scion FRS and the GR86, the previous one. They're just not reliable. They're fun to drive, but they're not reliable. Um, so the new one, I hope they improved it, but I have not had the time to really dig into one. They are really rare and they're really hard to come by. The car thing is. So I'm not going to speak about it unless I've had a little bit of time exploring around and checking it out. Um, and that one is going to be tough to predict if it's going to be reliable, improved over the previous one, which was not reliable, or the same. That's going to be hard to tell. But I will do a technical review once I've had one and spend a little bit of time with it to check it out. Lee Roberts, what are your thoughts about the reliability on the new engine for the Tundra and Sequoia, given this is a turbo in comparison to a naturally aspirated engine? So, this is my opinion on turbo engines. They're always, turbos at some point will fail. Now, what is that some point? 500 miles or 200,000 miles. Some people will talk about the wastegate issue. That's a whole other. I get a lot of questions about these, and I'll address it in a little bit. But here's the thing with turbo engines: they really need their maintenance. And if people continue to just say, "Oh, this is a Toyota, it lasts forever. I don't need to worry about maintenance," that's a mistake with the turbo engines. You really want to maintain them, and those turbos eventually, at some point, will have issues. That point might be 250,000 miles or earlier. Couldn't really tell you today because they haven't been out that long. But initial things, other than the wastegate issue, there hasn't been any other issues. And the wastegate issue is a little bit more inflated than it needs to be because this is a brand new model. It has been not a secret in my channel that I tell you do not buy the first 6 months of production if you want to keep this car long, because they usually put a new car out. You're going to have some issues. They're going to get taken care of under warranty, but then they're going to improve the things and you won't see the issues again. By the way, the Mighty V8 that everybody says it is the best engine there ever, the first 6 months of production, they had some disastrous problem, a lot bigger than the turbo wastegate getting stuck. So let's keep that in perspective here when we start saying that they ruined the Tundra. They didn't ruin the Tundra, but that's how it is with new models. That's why cars have warranties. Thomas Garcia, I have been a subscriber since around 30,000 miles, 30,000 miles, 30,000 subscribers. I appreciate you finally became a part of the Toyota Lexus family. 2010 RX 350, 109,000 miles. Well, Thomas, thank you so much for watching my channel and congratulations on your car. That's actually a really good car in my opinion. Matt Tripp, I have a 2022 RAV4 hybrid. I can't find any part website for that 22 listed as option for vehicle finder. What's your thought on when more accessories will be officially available? Honestly, it is really hard right now because you can't even get parts for these some of these newer cars. So accessories, everything is pushed back. Companies are barely keeping up with things. So you're going to give it a little bit extra time because things are anything but conventional these days. And unfortunately, usually accessories, they're usually available very quickly after a car is released and sometimes immediately. But we've been noticing some stuff with accessories that are just like, where are the accessories? There's just too much going on with the chip shortage and the hardship that the automotive business and actually the whole world's going through. So things are really in the question mark, in the unknown. I can't give you an answer on that one. So another question here. I am thinking of trading my 2010 RX 350 for a 1417 Sequoia. Thoughts on both? I would actually. The Sequoia is a really good car, but the gas mileage is not good. That's one thing I will tell you about it. The RX. If you're happy with the size of the RX, I would keep the RX. So John McCormick, I bought a Corolla Cross after watching your review, expecting it in 2 3 weeks. Well, congratulations. Corolla Cross is actually, you know, I told you that new models when they launch, there's going to be a few issues here and there. That's why you got a warranty, and that's how it is with new models. Every new model I've had one small issue or one big issue. Some models were standouts, like 19 Avalon had nothing. Um, but the another one is the Corolla Cross. Now we've had a lot of them come through the shop, sold, uh, come back for first service and whatnot. Nothing, just radio updates. That's the typical thing, but nothing. I mean, they just don't have issues. That's how it is. Some models are like that. Some models, like the 16 Tacoma, that was an absolute disaster, but then things got taken care of, and now it's a great model. That's how it is. It's the same thing with the Tundra. And the Tundra, we expected a lot worse. It's actually not as bad as some make it out to be. Not being biased here, this is the truth from the ground. If it was bad, I'd tell you. That's what I'm telling you. The 16 Tacoma was horrible. 18 Camry was not good. I own that generation Camry. 18 Camry, when it first launched, there was a lot of issues. RAV4, same thing. I almost bought a RAV4 Prime. Just couldn't get one. So that's normal, folks. This is the truth from the ground, that not sugar coated. When new models come out, there will be issues. You got a warranty, they're gonna take care of you, and life is good. I know that sounds too cold, and I just paid a small fortune, but that's how it is. But some other companies will have problems and they'll just not care about it. At least these folks are trying. But what's making the Tundra thing bad is the lack of availability of parts, and that's kind of out of control of everybody. I mean, let's look around us. The world is a little upside down right now on availability of parts and timely arrival of things. That's just become, unfortunately, the norm, and hopefully it'll get resolved soon because it's getting really old. So 560 SEL, is the catalytic converter failing PO420 a common issue on the 2003 2008 Corolla? So the early ones, like 2003 and 2004, if you don't change the oil on time, they love to burn oil. That's something that they did, and does ruin the catalytic converter. But 2005 and up, they're much better. But one thing on these, if it's in rusty land, you'll have the, like, right where the front pipe comes out. So exhaust manifold pipe hooks onto it, and that's the first catalytic converter. They love to rust and like rot right there, and you'll have a leak, and eventually it'll set a code. That's one thing. Maybe that's what you are referring to, but other than that, they're with good maintenance. They're not notorious for PO 420s. Yes, for those that ask, this is my bass guitar in the background. It's an interesting question. So Amit Shah, I had a 2013 Camry SEV6 with nav and JBL. Speakers got totaled in an accident. Got a 15 XSE with the same speakers. I need to put the volume on 45 and the new one to get the same sound at 35. Any thoughts? So they did possibly update the JBL, tweak the levels. They do that between models because the 12 and the 15 are technically, one of them is a facelift of the other, although they went a little bit overboard. So yeah, I think that is normal. There's no problem, but they just tweak the levels of the amplifier. That's why you'll notice that difference. And also, I'm sorry, it is a different radio. That's the main thing here. BG, what do you think about importing an FJ from the United Arab Emirates? Toyota still sells them there, and I love my 2014 FJ. What is covered by a Toyota lifetime warranty, which is covered by a Toyota lifetime warranty, incidentally. Honestly, importing it, yeah, it would be great. But the problem is, it's not as easy to import the car from another market because it doesn't fall on our emission standards here. And if you're bringing it to the U.S., I don't know where you're bringing it, but it's not as simple, unfortunately. And it's a shame that they still make it elsewhere, not in the U.S., not in many parts of the world, actually. Shy W, what size 12 battery load will the RAV4 Prime handle, assuming wiring directly to the battery? I want to run emergency lights and a mobile radio. So you could, but the battery is not really big enough to handle a lot of load with the car off. With the car running, you're okay, but with the car off, it wouldn't last long. You put a big load on it, it's just gonna go flat sooner than later, and that's not good. So um, just know that up front that it's not a big battery. Even though it says it is, I can't draw a number right off of anywhere from 300 to 400 cramping amps, something in that neighborhood, but it's not really a strong battery to begin with. That's just my experience. Rating is a rating, but they just don't last long on these. So be careful. Matt Tripp, any way to pre-charge the RAV4 hybrid battery before hitting the trail off-road? No, other than just driving it and really using a lot of regen. RAV4 hybrids, you can't plug them in, or you can't really pre-charge the battery per se. But if you use a lot of regeneration, right, getting up to the where you need it to be almost fully charged, there's no other way. That's that's why they made the RAV4 Prime. So Logan Miller, I have 2016 Camry that it has a clunk in the front when I hit 20 miles an hour after first start of the day. So it's gonna be hard to diagnose this without seeing the car and listening to everything, but it might be the ABS unit actuating, and it does that around 20 miles an hour. I wonder if that's what it is. If it is systematic and it happens exactly at the same point every single time without missing, then that is an ABS actuator running its self-test. That is normal. They can be a little loud, but it happens once and that's it. It wouldn't happen again until you recycle the key. So Nathan Shiba, thanks to you, I've made the decision to trade my 2018 Subi Limited 3.6R for a 2022 4Runner Limited. Why? Because it's ancient, bulletproof. You got that right. Subarus are, I actually do have some experience with Subarus. For some reason, the only Subaru we got in Toyota land was not a good one. And I actually have a friend that used to work for Toyota, went to work for Subaru, and something curious happened. He actually called me asking about a Subaru the other day. Not because I know more than him at Subarus, but he was calling me about a Subaru BRZ, because apparently the immobilizer system in the BRZ is a Toyota immobilizer, and he works completely different than the Subaru one, of course. And they had some issues with one in the shop, and he was like, "How do I deal with this? Like, forgot all this stuff already. I used to work for Toyota. I don't know the nitty and gritty of how the immobilizer." So Subarus are good cars, not comfortable, but they're closer to, believe it or not, they're somewhat close to Toyota, and that's interesting. But no match of the 4Runner, in my opinion, at least. Rudy Banks, I have a 2011 Toyota Camry with 80,000 miles, four-cylinder, just started experiencing a cold start rattle. Should I fix it or ignore it? So it depends how severe it is. If it's just a quick rattle, not something that's lingering for 5 seconds, you are okay, but you want to keep an eye on it, not an eye, but an ear for it. So if it starts to get to a point where every time you start the car, there's a rattle, that will be a good time to fix it. But if it's only on cold starts, just keep it in the back of your memory, listening to it when you start the car. It's periodically, when it gets bad, then do address it. But if it stays the way it is, you have time. You're okay. So, Moto Max San Diego. Never hear talk about the reliability of backup cameras and any other issues, media, phone, on dashboard, console. So the backup cameras with Toyotas are typically very reliable. They're you would have heard a lot of people complain about them and say it is the worst feature ever added to a car. If you look up the price of one, they are extremely expensive. I mean, we're talking $700-800 for one of these cameras, but they are so rare to go out. Usually, accidents damage them. Sometimes they're misdiagnosed, like you'll have a wire problem, and people assume it's a camera and they replace it. But really, they don't have a lot of issues. That's the truth. And the media and the phone and the dashboard, like the infotainment systems, they do have issues because every time you update your phone, there's there's potential compatibility issues now, and every time you update the radio there's potentially compatibility issues, and you buy a new phone, that's the problem. So that's why there's constant updates to fix these issues, because the phones are constantly changing. So when you connect your phone, it might not work right until your either radio is updated or the phone is updated to fix something. That's something we've been seeing a lot. If you have, by the way, I'll share this with you. If you have a iPhone 13 with a semi, I don't want to say older, but not the newest infotainment system, like let's say 2012 all the way maybe to 19, somewhere in that neighborhood. If you have an iPhone 13, your calls will constantly drop. That is a known issue that they are working with Apple to fix it, because it's actually an Apple problem with their something with their Bluetooth. I am not a phone person by any way, shape, or form, but the problem is from Apple. They will hopefully come out with an update. They first came out with a small update, supposedly was going to fix it. It didn't. And now we're pending on another update that will hopefully fix it. So if you ever have that, be patient. If you ever have this combination of car, in this model year range, and an iPhone 13, this is a known problem. Just unfortunately, you're going to have to be a little bit patient, and eventually it'll get resolved. So, Joe Otto, greetings from Canada. I have a 2020 XSE Camry with a rust around the trunk plate bolt holes. Have you seen this in any other Camrys? Yes, that is a common spot for them to rust, and it has to do with the bolts that they use. Sometimes, dissimilar metals, and some people use plastic bolts. Plastic bolts are okay, they're a pain when they get stuck. But that is a common spot, and it does get bigger over time, but it's going to take a long time. If you have the rust already over there, sometimes though, it is not bubbling rust, it's just a stain from the bolt. So make sure you distinguish which one it is. If it is actually bubbling and you have past actual rust, do bring it up to your dealer, because they will take care of it. You have your corrosion warranty. So, Nathan Shiva, do you have any opinion on the value of XPEL or similar paint protection film or ceramic coatings? So, ceramic coatings work. They, of course, they are very nice, but you gotta reapply and reapply unless you get something really expensive or you're spending $3,000 to put it on. In our case, Toyota Land, they're daily driven cars. Few models that are going to be preserved and pristine, kept in a garage, but most of them are daily driven. It just doesn't seem feasible that you spend $3,000 to protect paint on a daily driven car, regular car wash, and going through winter and everything. But there are some products that are okay, especially if you're DIY, you're gonna apply it yourself and all that. Actually, I am um, working with not working with a company. I hate the choice of that word, but there's a few companies that contacted me. One of them I liked, and they're gonna. I told them let's wait till spring because I gotta test this your stuff before I say anything about it. So I'm working on getting you a video sometime this spring. I'll apply it to my car, drive it for a month, see how it's doing and how hard is it to apply and how well does it hold in typical, regular cheapo car wash and all that. How does it hold, and is it worth it? Is it a good product? It is, but how much of a hassle is it going to be to keep it on? That's what I'm after. So you'll see something of that nature in the springtime. So Quantum, I just bought a 2022 Toyota Camry XSE all-wheel drive. I love the car, except people flashing brights at me because the LED lights are super bright, and the dealership did lower them. if they did lower them, I guess they need to lower it a little bit more, because I don't have issues with that. I drive a similar, 2022 XSE. I don't have issues with people flashing because they feel like my light's too high. Perhaps the dealership needs to lower it a little bit more. Something they didn't do it 100%. That's the only thing I can think of. So Matt C, what to expect first day or week working as a Toyota technician? Currently in the process of moving to another shop. Is working for a Toyota dealership a good career choice today? So that's a good question, because Toyota dealerships today, and actually for that matter, all dealerships across the United States, usually I will tell you it's a harsh environment. It's a rough environment where you're getting constantly yelled at and blamed for things that you didn't do. You really learn to grow super thick skin in this game. But lately, things are flipping, where now we went from there is a lack of technicians to there is no technicians. There's a big difference between that. Uh, it is a good career, but you need to know that Toyota is fast paced. There's a lot of Toyotas out there. You know, we had a guy that transferred from, I think, a Maserati dealership or something like that, who also worked on Volkswagens and Fiat. He was shocked. He was like, "I have a headache. There's just too many cars here." That's the shock. I don't know which dealer brand you're transferring from, but there is just too many Toyotas out there. And it's very normal for a dealership that to have 100 to 150 appointments a day. That is how Toyota dealerships roll. There's just a lot of Toyotas and Toyota customers. They're very loyal, but you will be having and I'll say this in technician lingo, if you would. You will have, I remember this, I had a torque converter on 2013 Camry, and granted it's a 3-hour job, but a torque converter on a 2013 Camry, the guy was waiting for the car, watching me through the window pull the whole trans out of the car and put it back. That does happen a lot in a Toyota dealership. You're going to have waiters, people waiting for their car for a very large job. So that puts a lot of pressure on you as a technician. You can't even breathe. You can't even. You want to go to lunch, you can't. You want to. That's the only thing with a Toyota dealership. If you didn't come from a similar volume dealership, but otherwise, it's a good career if you love what you do. If you don't, you're going to be miserable, like you know how it is in the technician world. But love what you do. So LT, I have been considering an IS 500 since I heard it'll be the last V8 engine in a new Lexus model. Do you know if it's true? Not sure if it's worth it. Is the noise isolation comfort comparable to the ES? So I wouldn't be able to tell you if this is the last V8. You never know. It might, people are saying gasoline engines are going away. I don't know about that either. So it's hard to tell if it's going to be the last V8, but it's definitely a unique one, because all models are going away from the V8, and here's a brand new model that didn't have a V8 before, or at least for some time. And hello, here's a V8, and it's a very old school V8. But it is a very nice model. If you want specifically something small, reliable, and loud and fast, it is not loud as in insulation level and comfort level. It is not comparable to the ES. That's a smaller car. The ES is a much more like usable day to day comfort, if you would. The IS is a little smaller than the ES, of course, but it drives much nicer. So this is where you want to make that decision. Do you want ultimate comfort and usability, or do you want performance? And that should be your deciding factor. So Tusha J, do you fix cars? I would like to make an appointment for my car. My car burns 200 miles from full tank of gasoline. I have a RAV4 2015. I do work on cars. That's what I do for a living. Email me with the subject Chicago service request if you are in the Chicago area. Unless you want to drive from far away. I don't know if that's something that works for you, because I really have a full schedule, and I sometimes work on weekends, sometimes I can. So send me an email, and we'll see where we put you on the schedule. We'll find time. So Craig Chagnon. I have a 2013 Sequoia, 75,000 miles. I moved from Boston to North Carolina. Have it Having it so up north, it has a lot of rust underneath it. I heard you have the rust cleaned and carriage sealed. Should this be done? Yes. You want to pressure wash and something called scaling, where you kind of take the flakes of the rust and then you coat it. But that is something I advise you to do because it potentially could progress depending how bad it is. I hope it is not significant. You said a lot of rust. I hope it's not significant where it's affecting the frame, but do get put that a little bit higher on your priority list because they can. That's one thing about these trucks that if it progressed too far, it could be an issue because that's a really good truck. Actually, I had one today with almost 300,000 miles. Did have a big problem. Video coming up on that soon. I won't. I won't say more. Candace have a RAV4 hybrid, best option for portable tire inflator, not battery powered. Manual says no more than 10 amp via cigarette lighter. Most are 15 amp. Can I plug it to the battery in the rear with alligator clamps? You can. I mean, that's something small that is not going to be run for hours and hours. That should be fine. And the battery, do not hook it up to the front though, under the hood. Hook it up at the battery directly. So Carlos, I have a 2016 Lexus IS 350, sorry, 2006 Lexus IS 350 with 150,000 miles. I've taken care of it. How long have you seen the 2GR FSE engine last mile-wise? You have an IS 350, it's going to be a while before that engine gives you any trouble. I mean, with good maintenance, these things will easily get to 300,000 miles, if not more. You know, a water pump at some point will go, maybe a few oil leaks, alternators will go, you know, the typical stuff, belt tensioner, the wear items, if you would, that I would call them. But the engine itself, as long as maintenance is done, these will last for a long time. These are really good engines. Okay. Happy Hippo. Have a 2022 Lexus RX 350, 1 month old. The inside door handles are making a squeaking noise when I get out of the car. Should I be worried that more items would go wrong with this new RX? No, I wouldn't say so, but things do happen. Again, this is little stuff. I mean, all it takes for a door handle to squeak is just a little off contact or a little tiny piece of plastic sticking out of it and it'll make noise. Take it to the dealership, have them take care of it, and I don't expect something to be chronic with noise like that. This is a one-off deal. It's not a major concern, and I don't see a reason where you need to be concerned future-wise. So Midwest Encyclopedic, driving my 2015 Sienna in cold weather, like 1 degree today. After about 10 minutes, I hear a loud popping sound from under the passenger seat. Seat heater off. What could this be? Thermal expansion. It's possible. So, passenger side, 2015 Sienna. It could be something with thermal expansion. Could be the exhaust just crackling and making that typical noise when it's really cold outside and it's hot. But if it's something that repeats and repeats, and you have it becomes kind of a chronic pattern, do have it checked. See what's if I can't think of anything on the passenger side other than the engine itself. You know, crackling that's normal in cold weather, but see if it stays. And if you can hear it, lean under the car. Do you hear it with the car off? If you do, there's definitely thermal expansion and nothing to worry about. So Arthur Alvarado, if I take my Toyota Camry 2018 SE for a safety recall, will the dealership try to sell me something I don't need just to make money? That's a really good question. Look, dealerships, when they get a car, if they're slow, they will, start checking the car out. Does it need brakes? Does it need tires? Let's look at everything. If they're extremely busy and you've never been there, they'll just look at the car, look at the safety. Do you need brakes and tires? Is there anything that could come back and hurt us? They're not going to look at maintenance. They're going to send the car out. Um, as far as selling me something I don't need just to make money, some dealerships unfortunately do that. Majority don't. They'll just recommend maintenance. Their prices are higher, of course. That's how dealerships work. But not necessarily sell you something you don't need, and you're welcome to say no to them and take their recommendations. Don't just say no and don't tell me. Listen to them, say no, go look at it. This is this stuff you really need. Do your research, watch videos, talk to the community, or if you have a friend that knows about cars, and then make a decision. Don't just say yes in the moment without getting all the facts. Prince Alberts, do plug-in hybrid Lexus vehicles use the same hybrid setup as Toyotas? Yes, for the most part, yes. That they've been using Toyota and Lexus shares hybrid like drivetrains, not just hybrids, everything, a lot. So yes, they will be very similar, if not exactly the same. James Stoyer, I have a 2000 Forerunner with the R150F 5-speed. I've got an input shaft bearing noise. It shifts beautifully, but unsure if I should be concerned. So something like this, I would need a little bit more info. When you say input shaft noise, how did you determine it was an input shaft noise? You should not be concerned because these, this is an older car. Things will start to wear. But if it's something that all of a sudden you're driving, everything is quiet, and all of a sudden it just got super loud, then I would be concerned. But if it's something that's gradually been getting a little bit louder every year, it's a little bit louder, I wouldn't be concerned. But there's going to be a point where it gets super loud. Now you have a little bit of vibration, input shaft bearings. Eventually, they're going to cause a vibration. So if you start noticing that, then yes, it is something I would be concerned and look into taking care of. Otherwise, just pretend it's not there. Just raise the radio. You know, I don't know how better to describe it, because as cars get older, they're going to get a little bit noisier. That's just the way it is with cars. But it doesn't mean you have to come out and spend a small fortune to fix it immediately. So Perry, does the 2006 Forerunner has a TPMS sensor on the spare tire? TPMS slides on even after inflating the four tires. It is potentially the spare tire. They do have a TPMS sensor in that year in the spare tire, which they thanks to them, they fixed it in the fifth generation. We don't have a spare tire, which is a good thing. Some people like it, but yeah, it's always a problem. Colorado Boo, how you doing, man? It's good to see you here. Chris Spretz, 2012 Corolla with squeaky brakes over the past month with snow. I took the car wash and squeaked less. I think past the season of, if you have snow, past the season snow and the kind of the wet, salty, and miserable time, and then make an assessment. Maybe take the brakes apart, clean them up a little bit, put some grease, re-grease everything, and put it back. Because moisture will cause brakes to make noise. Really cold weather sometimes will do that. If you have a lot of snow accumulated on it, that's water. It's gonna contaminate it a little bit. But then you drive it a little bit after getting it out of this um, salty mess. Things should get better, but I wouldn't be in a rush to start replacing things and spending money. Give it a little bit of time, a little bit of squeak here and there. It's not the a very big concern that will, your brakes are just not working or something. Not a safety concern, but it can get annoying. I understand that part, but don't be in a rush to replace things, because uh, it could be related to the weather. So Steve Yu, 2019 RAV4 Limited with low miles, 30,000 miles. When accelerating from a stop, it will often jerk forward abruptly. Done that since new. Haven't seen this in other Toyotas. So do you also have noise with that, like a groaning noise, or I'm trying to find a good way to describe it. But if you also have noise, and sometimes when you also stop, it will do that. If you do have that, that could be actually a known problem with these that Toyota is covering. So you might want to visit the dealership. Something with the torque vectoring system. If you road limited, so I'm assuming this is limited because this only applies to limited, adventure, and I think off road. uh, there's a coupler in the front that engages and disengages the rear prop shaft. There was some issues with it where it would kind of jitter and make like a jerk, or sometimes even a noise. That is something that gets taken care of under warranty, and it's a one-time problem. It's, again, early production problems. Um, they'll take care of it under warranty, and you won't have this issue again. K Chubb, did you mention that the 1GRFE has updated pulleys? So which 1GRFE? That's the thank you, Toyota, for this confusion. So if we're talking about the old 1GRFE, toward the end they did get the updated pulleys. The new 1GRFE did have updated pulleys from day one. So James Stoyer, the noise is RPM linked with the clutch fully engaged, pedal not pressed in, believe not a throw up bearing, but transmission rebuild sounds expensive. Hmm. Yes, I remember that. The noise, let me read that again because I got to focus on this one. The noise is RPM linked with the clutch fully engaged, pedal not pressed in. Trying to remember that. It could be a. It is not a throw up bearing, that's for sure. But try to remember if these had a pilot bearing. James, do me a favor. Put a comment in this video when we finish the live stream, and I want to check one thing before I give you an answer on that one. Amar Khan. Hello, hi from Toronto. I have two sets of wheels for my 2009 Highlander, but can only save one set to memory and have to get it pre-programmed at the dealership 2 times a year. Any recommendations on how to DIY this? So I think Carista, do go on their website. There's a tool called Carista. Do go on their website first. Check if you can program TPMS for your car with their tool. That's the cheapest way. It's a little slow and clunky, but it works. Otherwise, find a TPMS tool. You can find one. I think Xtool makes one, maybe. Um, find a cheapo tool that can program TPMS, and that's really the easiest way. I mean, at this point, if you've done this 2, 3 times, you could have bought yourself a serious scan tool, and it can do that. But you know, find a cheapo tool. I think Carista could do it, but check that it applies to your specific model. Eddie Longest, 2007 Tundra, 3.7. I'm assuming you mean 4.0 or 5.7. 5.7. I'm going to assume that that's 5.7. High idle, fixed procedure. Which works best? Lost a procedure on the internet. 1800 RPM it starts, still 900 plus in gear after warm up. Clean the throttle body, and unfortunately, there's something going on with these. Toyota removed a function on the scan tool that resets the idle for these, and that has caused a series of problems elsewhere. But unfortunately, you're going to have to drive it for a while and wait until it settles down, if that's the word I want to use. But clean the throttle body really well. Try disconnecting the battery overnight, but I doubt it will work. Otherwise, there's no other procedure other than let the car eventually figure it out. Candice, have you read of windshield washer fluid, the type that repels rain or de-icer, causing clogging in the nozzle lines or damaging paint? I personally have not. I've used it for a long time in my cars. I haven't really seen any issues with that. Adolfo Begazzo, going to DIY this week. My Highlander, 13 Highlander, 83,000 miles, transmission oil, drain and fill. Can you please give any special pointers, advice to be aware of? Use original fluid. I have a video that will be exactly the same with how the procedure works for your car. You don't need a fancy scan tool or anything. Just follow the video, and life is good. If you couldn't find the video, post a comment in this video after we're done with the live stream, and me or Mrs. Carcare and I will dig out the video for you, and you'll find it. Omar Alvarado, 2008 Lexus RX 350, 110,000 miles. Should the PCV valve be replaced at a certain mileage interval? What symptoms will a car exhibit if the valve is failing? Will a failing valve tip a code? It will not tip a code unless it's very specific and kind of rare cases, but do replace it with the spark plug. So your car is a 2008 RX 350. Do replace it with your spark plugs that are 120,000 miles. And as far as symptoms when it does go bad, with Toyotas, it's not as severe of symptoms. The most severe one is all of a sudden oil consumption out of nowhere, or if you have it stuck the other way, you could have lean code. So you're going to have a P171, PO171, PO174. Very rare that it would do that. I've seen more of the oil burning situation than the PO71, 74, but at 120,000 miles, you shouldn't expect it to be bad, but replace it so we wouldn't find out how long it takes to be bad. That's all I'm going to tell you. They're very simple on your car. It takes like 2 minutes, if that. David Eckerman, 2022 Tacoma, 4-cylinder 4x4. Good in the snow for a ski vehicle, or is the RAV4 Adventure better? So The Tacoma will be possibly better in this deep snow situation because it has a real 4x4 system. The RAV4 is more for driving on, muddy situations, maybe not something deep and wilderness or overland type. But if you're just going over, a dirt road or a dirt road with some snow on it, nothing off-road, like off-road, real off-road, if you would, then the RAV4 is fine. Otherwise, Tacoma will be more capable for sure. A little bit on the underpowered side if you really get yourself stuck, but otherwise, it's, of course, more capable. Jason, oh my God, I want to say thank you, but I'm going to have a hard time with your last name, but I'm going to try it. If I say it wrong, I'm sorry. Jakey Boski. If I didn't say it right, I'm sorry, but thank you so much for joining the live stream. I appreciate it. So Nathan is a fellow Chicagoan. Hello to you, Nathan. Thank you for joining the live stream. So Zach Attack 316 2012 Camry AC 4-cylinder 104,000 miles. Spark plugs are coated in oil. Would this be a bad tube seals or is this a bigger problem? Also, transmission has a flare 2334 when cold. So the transmission, this is a very, very common problem and it's somewhat simple to fix. Um, if you don't have torque converter issues, which is a bigger issue, if it's just a flare, it's a transmission memory reset, takes 2 minutes with a good scan tool, and life is good. The plugs that are coated with oil, it's going to be the tubes, not the tube seals, where the tube, it is a little bit of a bigger conundrum to do that because you have to actually pull the tubes out of the cylinder head, reseal them, and put them back, and they are pressed in. Gear Up Garage 2002 Land Cruiser. I lifted with 2.5-inch OME. When I make a tight turn, it makes a loud clunk. That could be, how is the, that's a pretty, that might be a little bit too much lift, but you do want to look at your front axle angles. Are they extreme angles where you're hanging down? Do you have contact issues? Is there something hitting or moving? That's what you want to look at because I've seen some pretty wild angles on these Land Cruisers, and they do tend to make noise at very sharp turns. Most people try to avoid these sharp turns, but do look at your front axle angles. Animal 16365. My Scion TC has a very dusty, dirty engine bay from sitting in dirt lot when I'm at work. Any recommendations? The best way to clean it? So hose it down real quick. Not a lot of water, just wet everything. Take a brush everything down, agitate it, and then hose it down once, give it a minute, hose it down twice. You should have gotten majority of the stuff that are caked in. Then take compressed air, dry it all up, and hand wipe it. Because most people spend too much time trying to make it everything super shiny. You don't actually, that is actually not very good. You don't want to go too much on the cleaning under the hood. And if you do it regularly, you're not going to have to do heavy cleaning. That's my opinion. Springtime, I will make a specific video just for that because a lot of you have asked, and it's kind of not works when in single digit outside here in Chicago. Green Dragon's Den. I'm looking at a good delivery car with a 2016 Corolla. Be a good choice? If so, how often do I change CVT fluid? So a 2016 Corolla is a good choice for to make deliveries, but as far as the fluid, you do want to change every 60,000 miles, regardless of what anybody says. Use the original fluid, 60,000 miles. You're going to have problems with that CVT, at least that I have seen. I've seen ones with over 200,000 miles. Drives perfectly fine. James Doyer, it does have a pilot bearing. Isn't that spinning only when the clutch pedal is pressed? As an aside, do newer Tacoma's manuals not have a pilot bearing? Some of the newer ones do not have a pilot bearing. That's why I needed to double check that part. But if you are sure that it has a pilot bearing, and that's what I wanted to double check, it could be a pilot bearing because when you're driving and you press the clutch, that is spinning. So it could be very well a pilot bearing. It's not a throw-up bearing, but I do want to check one more thing. Still leave me that comment in the video here, and I'll get back to you. R. Cavazos, 2018 Tacoma TRD V6. Pedestrian around 20-35 miles an hour. Predestination around 20-30 miles an hour when need to accelerate. Predetonation, I'm guessing, sound around 20-35 miles an hour when need to accelerate. Does with regular and premium. Deep South Texas. Are you using good fuel? That's the first thing. Switch your fuel brand around and see if that improves it. Uh, there is not really something common with these. They should not detonate. They're a little bit prone to it, but change your fuel type. That's the first thing I can think of. Joey the Dime, 2019 4R Limited, never really goes off-road. How often should I grease the prop shaft? Joey, honestly, every oil change, every other oil change is a good time because even though you don't go off-road, they are still spinning. Especially, you have it limited. You're always in all-wheel drive. So regardless if you go off-road or not, you still want to grease the prop shaft because it's always being used. But not as much as someone that does heavy off-roading where you always at crazy angles, you really need it. But still, every oil change, every other oil change, it's a good idea to do it. And it should be actually, if you go to a dealership, it should be included with the service. When you take for an oil change, it's very simple. We just have an air operated one, just takes 2 seconds and that's it. All righty. So, Zhao Jeffrey. Uh-oh. The chat just jumped. I'm sorry, Zhao Jeffrey. I was trying to read your question, but YouTube have other plans because the chat just jumped up again. Lester Lean. That's the first question I can answer. Looking to buy an IS350 or GS350 between 2006 and 2010. They're both good options. Just make sure they're not one of those neglected ones because I see a lot of those everywhere. Don't go with the neglected ones. Go with the good ones. Find one that has good service history. Very few owners, or maybe one owner that still sees it as a nice car. These are really nice cars if they're taken care of, and hard to find in good shape because people that own them and still own them today, first owners, they're going to keep them because they're just very reliable, very nice cars. But be careful with bad examples. That's the main thing I'll tell you. So, folks, we're going to take a few more questions. Then we'll just jump to the end of the chat and we'll have a talk. All right. How do I reset the idle on my 2013 Camry SE 4-cylinder? So, there's not really a reset per se. You can reset the learning values with a scan tool. That resets everything. Disconnecting the battery doesn't do it. But if your idle is too low, clean your throttle body. If you did and the idle now is too high, then you're going to want a scan tool to reset it back to factory spec. Benjamin, do you think I should get the 2022 Lexus NX350H or the NX250? So this is a hybrid versus non-hybrid. If you want better gas mileage and don't mind the way hybrids drive, a hybrid is a good option. And is it within your budget? That really is a question of, do you like this specific model or not? They're really good options. They're both good options. I don't say, oh, don't get this one is a disaster. They're both good, but which one do you like? And which one falls better within your budget and your needs for the car is the one I would go with. Ian Smith, 2013 Prius, fixed my mileage issues, replaced 12-volt battery. It was the original within 2 tanks, have gone from 31 to 48 miles per gallon. That's interesting because technically on paper it shouldn't do that, but that's interesting. Thank you for that observation, Ian. That's something I want to look into because that is a new one. Let me take a mental note of that one because I want to remember that. Interesting. Battery. Okay. Where were we at? Sergio F. EFI tank additives for 2018 Highlander. Is it needed? So they list this as specific specific markets will list this, but I don't know how much you need that really. I don't really believe in the tank additives. If they do anything, it's going to be minute, and most of the time they don't do much other than slowly pick away at the at your bank account. They don't really do much. That don't I wouldn't use them. DNV Cheers: How to fix a Corolla 2013 Model 3ZZ engine 1.6, 255,000 kilometers with spark plug leaks, but no leaks at the valve cover gasket since replaced twice already, and it's drying as well, but in SP thread it has oil. Well, do you have excessive oil consumption with this thing? Because the oil is either going to be coming from the top or from the bottom. And if you have oil on the threads of the spark plugs, you could be having excessive oil consumption. So if the car burns oil, that would be the first thing I would look at, because on this model, I'm trying to remember here, you don't have spark plug tubes. You only have the gasket on around, in the valve cover. It's built into the valve cover gasket. So if that's been taken care of and you're sure everything's sitting correctly and you're using an original gasket, then it's coming from inside. And if you have oil consumption, that's going to do it. All right, folks. So let's have a little talk before we end the live stream. And I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom of the chat. So if so I want to see your responses, because it's time for me to ask you some questions. So I have something to say, and all I'm gonna do is just give you, not even, I'll just hype you guys up and see what you think. Not what you think, but just tell you one thing. For the past few days, I have been not as present in comments and answering and even the emails, because I have been extremely, extremely busy. Folks, all I'm going to tell you is there is something brewing in the background. It is very big and it's major and potentially life changing. That's all I'm going to say. Mrs. Karkiran is already looking at me like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'll get yelled at later. But that's all I'm going to say. So stay. No, I'm not going to work for a Honda dealership. That's not going to happen. Actually, I've done that before. Didn't like it. Moving to Mercedes. No, no, not going to do that. No teaser. Kid? No kid. No way. Come on, man. No. Oh. Do you know how much work it is to get your kid to 12 years old? This is a lot of work. And I'm pretty sure it only going to get harder from here. Toyota Japan hired you. No, I like my freedom. What's that? Car care, not cologne. I don't know. That might smell like what? Grease and oil and transmission fluid. WS fluid doesn't smell well. That's all I'm gonna say. New car? No, I actually need less cars. That's what I need. Or retirement? No. Moving to Mexico. We went. You know what? Moving to Mexico. We're not moving to Mexico, but I did go to Cancun around Christmas. What a beautiful country that is. What a beautiful place and beautiful people. I really have to say that. But no, I'm not moving to Mexico. I wish the weather is really nice. Mission trips, that would be something nice. But no, TV show, no. I'm something. You'll find out. I'll let you guys keep guessing, but something is big, is brewing, and it is taking my work. So I work around what? Anywhere from 80 to just over 100 hours a week between YouTube and work at the dealership. But now we are pushing past that. Second channel. So it's not it, but potentially there is a second channel coming up. We'll see. Jeremy W., you do know, and if you say, we're going to have a talk. Jeremy is a personal friend of mine, and we've been talking about this for a while. Jeremy, keep it to yourself. So much that I was supposed to go to the Chicago Auto Show yesterday, and something came up, and I actually had to cancel that trip. I was really excited for it, but unfortunately, that didn't happen. So, guys, new brand of clothing. No, Sean O'Connell. Hold a second there, Sean O'Connell. We gotta talk. We gotta talk about you, my friend. So Sean O'Connell. I don't know how many of you watch Scotty Kilmer. Some of you really like him, respect him. Some of you don't. To each their own. But I'll say this: Sean O'Connell took a X-Tool D8 to Mr. Scotty Kilmer. I actually watched that video because I was curious what he was going to say about it. Um, Interesting Ford there, Sean O'Connell. I just, by chance, I was looking at the video, that I saw a few comments. I'm like, huh, that is your truck and your tool? Interesting. Less hours working, hopefully. I hope so one day, my friend. But work and everything else just won't stop. And right now, I am young, and I can sustain working long hours and buy your own dealership. Now, that would be nice. It sounds like a very expensive proposition. Honorary Japanese citizen? No, no. AMD Toyota dealership, Toyota of AMD, Toyota of car care nuts. That would be nice. Moving into sales? No. You're the next CFO for Tesla. Why would I go work for Tesla now? There is there is nothing that. Okay, do you really want to have the Tesla conversation? That would be car restoration. No, it's too much work. I'd rather just buy one that's already restored. Motor show trend. Motor trend show. See, I'm already losing my words. Maybe. Anyways, I'll just leave you guys to think about that. But the first people that will know are potentially my Patreons, and I'll give you just a small time window. Um, we potentially looking into the second anniversary of the Car Care Now channel. Perhaps somewhere around there, you will actually already know what's going on and what's happening. But in the meantime, know that something big is happening. So if you see me a little spotty on responding to comments, look very tired in videos, or not responding to comments as much, just know that it's been a tough few weeks, and it'll continue to be until we reveal what's cooking in the background. All right, guys. So we're gonna call it a day here. Thank you so much for watching the channel. Thank you so much for the live stream. I hope I was able to help. I wish there was a way to stay here for 4 hours and answer every single question, but time is limited, and we still have to spend time with the kiddos and everything. So we'll catch you up on the next live stream. So there is a very high chance that next week we will have a live stream, but actually on the 26th, we will not, because I will be filming a very long and very complicated water pump video for you guys. So look forward for that. We have a few car reviews coming up, and business as usual. I hope you guys are enjoying me filming all the side work that I do. Uh, every car that I work on now at home, I'll just film it, show it to you guys, and kind of be a shop time. There will be something regular, where a lot of things going on. So I better stop, because I'm too tired. It's the weekend. It's late, and I'm gonna slip and say something that Mrs. Car Care Nut will not like. So let's leave it at that. What do you say, Mrs. Car Care Nut? That's it. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching the live stream. I really appreciate it. And until the next live stream or video, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and you guys have a wonderful day.